I've done in the past. I don't know, this might have been a preaching message. Sometimes I can't tell my Sunday school from my sermons. And this is it's entitled Wisdom from the Wee Folk. Wisdom from the Wee Folk. And turn to Proverbs chapter 30. And we're going to learn here about 4 critters that God uses to teach some things. And we're going to do it's going to be spiritual things that we get from it, and also physical things or carnal things that we understand from it. But Proverbs chapter 30, look at verse 24. We'll start there. Proverbs 30, verse 24. And it says, "There be 4 things which are little upon the earth, but they are exceeding wise." He said, "The ants are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. The conies are but a feeble folk, yet make their houses in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet go they forth all of them by bands. And the spider taketh hold with her hands, and is in kings' palaces." That was very interesting, because 3 of those things mentioned are what every person wants. The other one is what every person needs to have. So we'll break that down. Turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 7. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 27. And we'll look at a verse here. You know, I don't think anybody's ever quantitated. I don't know if you can quantitate what we've obtained from insects in the animal kingdom. I know the military has learned camouflage, all kinds of different things. Technologies have learned from insects and animals and everything else. There probably could be whole encyclopedias written on what we have gained by just observing what God's created in nature. He says there in 1 Corinthians 1:27, "But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty." And, you know, not one of these is I would consider very strong, that's for sure. Now, there may be strong in numbers, but individually, they're not strong at all. I mean, an ant? Who's worried about an ant? Now, if 10 million of them come at you, you might have, especially if they're army ants, you might have a problem. But God's chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. And that's probably why He's chosen us. We're considered, the Bible says you're a fool for Christ. I mean, you know, God has chosen the foolishness of preaching. Now, it's not the message, it's the method. And God He chooses weak people. Why? Because, well, first of all, it confounds the things which are mighty. They're not looking for it coming from you. But that's what God wants to use, and God gets the glory for it. So we're going to talk about 4 different, we've got 3 insects and a coney, which is it's a hare. It's like a rabbit. Now, you'll look in some book, you know, and they'll try to tell you it's a honey badger or something. Listen, a honey badger is not feeble. If you don't believe me, stick your hand in a honey badger's hole and see what happens. A honey badger will fight anything. It's one of the most fearless creatures God ever made. It'll fight a bear. It'll fight a lion. It will. It'll fight anything. And a lot of times, the animal that's trying to kill it probably could, but realizes it's not worth the fight. Well, that's not what this is. This is something that's feeble. This is something that, you know, if caught, can be easily killed. Anyway, we'll get to that. But let's talk about the first one. We're going to be talking about the ants. And what he says there, the ants are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. This is going to be talking about supply. Everybody wants supply. If the supply lines are cut off right now, you'd be feeling it, right? Now, the reason I say this is think about what just happened in the last 24 hours. Actually, it's been happening over a period of weeks. But take the Iranians for instance. And let's just say and there's going to be some, we just don't know where they're at, but let's say there's some Christian Iranians in Iran right now where this is happening. I just saw the other day where they show this big long line at a gas station, and they're able to get only 20 liters of petrol. They're probably more on diesel than anything else, but it could be gasoline. But they're allowed about 20 liters. Well, that's barely 5 gallon. If it is, I don't even think it is 5 gallon. If it is, just barely. And 5 gallon to get you out of Tehran, to get you safe from what's going on, because they're telling them you need to get out of Tehran. And I mean, if they have to, they're going to turn it into a parking lot. Well, you don't want to be there, especially you don't want to be there with your family. And what always surprises me is the line. And I'm thinking to myself, who didn't see this coming? Who? You mean to tell me you can't fill up 3 gas cans of 5 gallon apiece and have them at your house? You can't tell me you don't fill up your car, make sure you keep it topped off, because you know this is going to happen. And yet they're there in line. This guy's 100 people back, wondering if he's ever, am I going to get any gas? What am I going to do? Well, what were you doing? Sitting around watching soccer? What? Blows my mind. He said, no, consider the ant. You know what he does? He works. He prepares. He gathers. He gets ready for the time when he's not going to be able to go out and find it. You would think we don't have to talk about this kind of wisdom, but listen, here's a statistic for you. Most American households have about 3 days worth of food in them. 3 days. I walked in a house one time, guy opened the fridge, and there was nothing in there but mustard. I mean, that's about how they kept it. He had a couple condiments in there. I hope he enjoys them, because that's what he's going to eat, bottle and all. And I'm like, where's the food? In fact, he invited us over to eat. I wonder if we was going to get anything. But they just buy everything fresh every day. But, that's okay if you want to do that. I wish I could buy fresh every day too. But, man, I'll tell you what, you go to my house, and there's food tucked everywhere. I mean, I used to have 3 freezers, and they were always full because I had cows, I had pigs. I mean, there was always chickens. I always had something in the freezer. I still got 2 freezers that are just, I've told her, I said, I want you to reduce that. My wife can't. It's not in her DNA to reduce that. It's got to be packed all the time. Now, whether we can eat all that stuff, sometimes end up throwing out a lot of it, and I hate that, but I know that it's there. I can eat anything. I mean, it could be a little freezer burnt, so what, if you're hungry. But ants prepare. They prepare for the future. The ant knows that he must prepare for the future. He also knows that besides the other ants, nobody else is going to help him do it. And he knows he must prepare while he has an opportunity. Individually, they're weak and small. Together, they're industrious, diligent. They will work and work and work and work to get the job done. How many of you ever had an ant farm? Those are the neatest things, man. As long as you don't tip them over, jar them. Oh, you get some kid all of a sudden he shakes it. I'm like, what are you doing? You just killed a colony of ants, you murderer. But you watch them build those tunnels, man, and they're moving that food. You put that little bit of food in there, and they're moving that food, and they're stocking it here and stocking it there. They even got a place where they take their dead. As they're dying, they take them, they put them in a certain area. And it's just fascinating to watch this thing. Of course, the Bible told you that, 1000 BC, man. Consider the ant. They may not be strong, but they prepare. And listen, you may not be strong, but you can do some preparing, and you probably should. All right, first and foremost, there's spiritual preparations. Let me show you a verse here. Romans 12 went along with being industrious and diligent. Romans 12, verse 10 to 12, he says there, he's talking to, verse 10, let's start there. Be kindly affection one to another with brotherly love and honor preferring one another. You know, we ought to be kind to one another. We ought to prefer one another. I mean, I prefer being with Christians rather than I do anybody else. That's just, you know. And if you prefer being around unsaved people, there's a problem. Either there's a problem with the Christians you're hanging with, or there's a problem with you. But he says there in verse 11, look at this. Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Not slothful. In other words, you take care of business. How many Christians I've ever seen that do not take care of business, man? They let everything fall by the wayside. You have to take care of things. And God knows you only got so much time. You pray about those things. I always pray, say, Lord, help me with it, because I'll never get it done. But you want to be diligent about your business, and part of your business is preparation. And you say, well, I don't know how it's going. You can prepare for the rain, but you don't know how hard it's going to rain. That's true, you don't. You can prepare for something and something else happens. You know, you could prepare your home for all kinds of different things, and then a tornado come through and just literally take it. You know, that's possible. But I think there's certain things that just stand to reason that you should be prepared for on the physical side of things as well as the spiritual side of things. Look at Amos chapter 4, verse 12. Amos chapter 4, verse 12. He said, therefore thus will I do unto thee, O Israel, because I will do this unto thee. Prepare to meet thy God, O Israel. And in Israel's case, there's preparation to meet God. There's repentance, there's faith, and there's also works. And he tells Israel, he says, prepare to meet thy God. Let me tell you something. There's a reason why those 5 wise virgins get to meet him early. Why? They're prepared. They got oil in their lamps, they got light, and they go out to meet the bridegroom. They believed on him. Of course, Israel will have to prepare to meet God face to face at the Advent, those that remain. The sinner must prepare to meet God, receiving his Son as their personal Savior. That's what we're supposed to do in this age. We're supposed to, for us to prepare to meet God, we need to know the Son. You're prepared then. Now, I will say this. Look at 2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2, and look at verse 19. It says, nevertheless, the foundation of God standeth sure, having this seal, the Lord knoweth them that are his, and let everyone that nameth the name of Christ depart from iniquity. And then he's going to give you an example here. He says, but in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, those are the good vessels, right? But also of wood and earth. That's earthly vessels. They're not so good. Wood and earth won't last. It'll rot. It'll decay. And it says some to honor and some to dishonor. Well, we know the gold and the silver would be to honor, and the wood and earth would be to dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. And that is, we're to be in preparation for God to be able to use this vessel. You say, when do you do that? Every day. It has to be. It's like having to clean up. It's like how do I put this? It's like your dog, okay? And you got one of these dogs, that loves to be outside, but you like to have him in at night. Maybe you like him as a little guard dog. But he loves to go outside, but every time he goes outside, man, he rolls in mud and other things that you don't want him to roll in. And just about every day, you got to give him a bath. And you give him a bath and you clean him up, and he smells so good and he looks so good. And you just like having him around. But then the next day, you let him out again. Sure enough, man, he comes back smelling like a skunk. Well, that's about how we are. Paul said, I die daily. In other words, every day we have to wash. Why? So that we can be meat for the master's use, so that God can use us Be prepared unto every good work. There's preparation there. Preparation of reading your Bible, preparation of prayer. I mean, you got to confess those sins somehow, right? You can't just, just kind of like, think about it. You have to confess those sins to God, get them cleansed. You want to read your Bible. Why? You want spiritual infusion. You want the Word of God just surging through you. And that helps you to be meat for the Master's use. Be prepared. It's also, because of these ants, also wise to prepare for lean days ahead. The ant set aside that which it needs, okay? Not necessarily what it wants. People think, and you can buy, I mean, if you got the money and you can buy this buckets of stuff that they've got the sealed packages, I mean, they're good for 25, 30 years. It's freeze-dried, and there's no moisture in it, and it's sealed up, and you can get all kinds of, you can get spaghetti and meatballs, you can get beef stroganoff, and you see 25 years, you can open up that package, pour some boiling water in there, stir it up, let it sit for a little bit, eat it, it'll almost, I say almost, taste as good as when you put it in there with freeze drying, okay? I know that because I have a freeze dryer. And some things it works really well on, some things, not so well. But you can freeze dry stuff, and they'll seal it in these Mylar bags and put it in a bucket for you. And I strongly recommend that you put the bucket inside something. Because I'll tell you what, a mouse, you give them enough time, they'll eat into a bucket. I'd put it in something very heavy. If you've got a 55-gallon drum, steel drum, I'd put it in that. I'll tell you what, man, they're critters. They can eat you out of house and home. All they got to do is go in there and they'll bite every bag. They'll bite open every bag, chew open every one of them. So you got to prepare for that. Anyway, look at Proverbs chapter 6. Yeah. You have one of them what?
We have one of the spaghettis from Ready Hour.
Oh. Yep. Salt, pepper, hot sauce. And hot sauce don't go bad either, hardly. I mean, you can keep it forever. But I've got my son-in-law taught me into raising, what was the habaneros. And man, all of a sudden I had bumper crop of these habaneros. Man, they're hot. And I tried making the sauce, and he knows how to do it a lot better than I do. Mine didn't turn out very well at all. But what I ended up doing was, I just used a dehydrator. I dehydrated those things down to where they were just, you can snap them in half. They were that crispy. Then I put them in a bullet and ground it up to powder. And I just put it in a shaker, and when I want to add some heat to anything like chili or anything, or pork, I love it on pork, I just shake it, and I put salt in there with it. So it's salt, and man, that stuff is wonderful. Wonderful. I hope I got enough to last me till the rapture. I hope I do. Huh? Yeah, I might have to grow some more. I haven't been able to grow a crop like that since that year. I don't know why. Man, we had a great year there. Anyway, Proverbs 6, look at verse 6. He said, go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her way. Notice somebody's lazy. Consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler. Now, we can apply that to Jews of the dispersion, but we can also apply that to Christians. Listen, we have no earthly king over us. At least in America, we don't. But as a church, we have no earthly king, period, over us on this planet. Now, we've got a heavenly king that we're waiting to come back, but we have no earthly king. It says, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yea, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man. He's talking about being robbed. highwaymen is what we call them. I mean, they used to be all over the place and probably still are. I notice in other countries, how many of you get the videos where the guy pulls up on the motorcycle with a gun, tries to rob somebody, and then all the townspeople dive on him and beat him to a pulp? Oh, okay, I'm the only one who watches those. But those are like highwaymen. They're robbing people on the road. And he's saying, look, when you don't prepare, you wind up just like that man that is robbed by an armed man. They take your clothes and everything. And there you be. You were unprepared. And the thing is, it happens so suddenly. People think, well, when I realize something's going on, I'll tell you what it is. It's like 2 days before, it looks like we might get hit with a snowstorm. And then on that last day, all of a sudden you go to the grocery store. And what do you find? Absolute chaos. Everybody's grabbing everything, fights breaking out. Everybody wants to get that last gallon of milk, that last loaf of bread. No, you don't. You let them fight out over it. You're already at home. You've prepared. You're ahead of the game. Just like, let them have it. Let them fight over it. You're prepared. Taking care of business. He said, be like the ant. The ant's not having to run down, or run outside to get something in a blizzard. He's already got something stored in there. Look at Hebrews chapter 11. Look at verse 7. It says, by faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet. In other words, when you can see them, it's probably too late to prepare. I mean, if he said, if he'd went outside, he says, what are those? Those look like big old black clouds full of something. I mean, he had never seen rain before. By the time he saw it, you think he'd have got that ark built? It took him 100 years to build that ark. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear. In other words, the Lord said, hey, about 120 years here, I'm going to drown this place out and everything's going to die. Anything draws breath is going to die. He said he prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. In other words, the fact that he's building an ark and everybody else is like, what is wrong with this old man? He's here. He is. Listen, we need to get them boys away from him. Look what he's done. Them boys are out there working on something. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. He's nowhere near water. He's 20 miles from the lake. What's he doing? But he's building on an ark every day. You imagine for 100 years building on this thing? And then all of a sudden, they look up and I go, what is that? He was ready. He took the animals in there like God said, and God had to bring the animals. He took the animals in there, and God shut that door, man. When he shut that door, nobody else is getting in there. You see, what did he do? He prepared. Now, God ultimately is the one that closed him in, shut him in. But he had to prepare that ark. I think God will take care of you, okay? And my whole saying is this: you know what the difference is between someone who does prepare and someone who doesn't during a crisis? About 50 pounds. Because that's how much weight you're going to lose if you're not prepared. You're going to suffer in some way, shape, or form. Unless you've got really good neighbors. Or you know somebody else that's prepared. Speaking about the Iranian thing, they got listen, this is a compounded thing. A lot of these folks should have been well ready for this a long time ago. Why? Because their economy has been falling for months. The currency is weakening like crazy. And this is when you know you're about to go under, when your currencies, for instance, the real, does that it sound familiar? Real, R-I-A-L, real. Let's just call it real. That's their currency. It takes 1,666,000 real for $1. Real? Okay. So it takes 1,666,000 real for $1. And our dollar ain't worth hardly anything. It's worth less than a dime than what it originally was. So you probably need about 3 million of these to buy a loaf of bread. 3 million real. I mean, it's debased. It's collapsing. Their currency is collapsing right out from under them. You know what? When a currency collapses underneath you, and you will experience that. None of you are going to the grave without experiencing that, unless something kills you. But what you have to have when a currency collapses is commodities. You have to have something somebody wants. Food is something somebody wants. Precious metals are something that the whole world wants, especially now. Just a thought. I mean, if you got some food, you can barter with food, but I don't think your currency is going to do you much good. Need something to trade with. By the way, they also have had a drought in Iran for a while, and I guess it's pretty serious. So they've had drought conditions. That's a double whammy. Then war broke out. Now they're looking at a change of government. You think it's going to be easy there? It's not. It's not. And folks that have prepared, and then there's peril of life, especially if you're a Christian living there. You've probably been under, your life has probably been threatened for quite a long time. And if you've made it through all that, now you got to, in a transition, anytime a government, there's a transition going on, it takes time. And there's suffering involved. And they'll go in there and try to relieve it, but what are you going to do? How many people in there? 9 million? No, 90 million. 90 million. That's a lot of folks. And that's a lot of folks to feed. So, be like the ant. I always say this, at a minimum, okay? Let's say you're dirt poor and you got barely 2 nickels to rub together. You ought to at least accumulate at least 3 weeks worth of food in your house and water. 3 weeks minimum. 21 days. Even, what's the organization? FEMA. Even FEMA will tell you 3 weeks now. Used to be 7 days. I think it used to be 3 days, but now it keeps going up. Why? You never know how long you're going to be down. I mean, you can have a storm come through, an ice storm come through, and take out your electrical, and you might be looking at 3 weeks to a month. So you ought to prepare those things. It's not very hard. I mean, if you don't mind beans and rice, you can, it's not even that expensive. I mean, you probably get tired of it pretty quick. But you can can, you can buy. Canned goods last forever practically. Just don't let them freeze. Don't leave them out in the sun. There's a lot of things you can do, but you should have a supply of things. Spiritual preparations always do. Godliness is always better. It will profit you more any time. But these physical things you need to consider too. We'll talk about one more thing here, begin it, on security, and that's the conies. And what you've got is these, I'll call them rabbits, hare, whatever, but they live in the rocks, okay? Now, I've hunted rabbit. I can tell you that they're fast. But if you can, get them before they go in a hole or whatever, go underground, if you can get them, they're easy to kill. I've snapped many a neck of a rabbit that I caught. I either shot it and got it in the leg and then quickly dispatched it. And there's like no resistance, man. They're just weak creatures, And I know some of you look at me, how dare you? Well, you got to eat. I ate them, okay. Didn't care for Hassenpfeffer, but anyway. But they're not a very strong animal. They can't attack you, bite you. I guess they could bite you. I've never been bitten by one, but they just can't defend themselves. But I can tell you this, if they got crags and rocks and holes in those rocks, and they get in there with a bulldozer, you can't get them out. It becomes a place of security for them. And it's interesting that it's among the rocks. Philippians chapter 2, verse 15. Go ahead and turn there. See, the conies, they realize their weakness, but their location is their strength. He says there, and let me read the verse. I should have read that to begin with. The conies are but a feeble folk and make their houses in the rocks. Philippians 2:15 says this about Christians, that you may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. You know, we're kind of stuck in a world. We're supposed to be harmless. Now, that doesn't mean we won't defend ourselves and defend our families, but we don't cause, listen, we don't try to cause problems. We don't go to riots. I hope you don't. I won't even go to protest. I won't. Now, I'll vote. My feet will go and vote, but I'm not going to go protest something. I'm not going to go out there threatening anybody with any kind of violence because they're not doing what I think they should do. I don't believe in that. The Bible talks about going to riot. We don't do that. Why? We're harmless. We hurt no one purposely. Now, we'll hurt somebody to defend ourselves and our families. But you've got no concern that a Christian's going to start beating up on you or try to blow you up or hold you and try to convert you at sword point or gun point. We just don't do that. We just say, thank you, have a nice day, and we leave. That's what we do. But these conies, they turn to the rock for their safety and protection. In fact, they don't venture too far from the rock. They stay pretty close to it. And the conies are as safe as the hiding place they're in. And when they get in those rocks, man, if you've ever seen a crag full of rocks, I've had things get into rocks, man, start pulling them rocks out, and never find that thing. You get a snake goes in a rock and try to get it like a garter snake or something, try to get that snake, you can't get them, man. And if they got holes in there and they've got their way in there, man, they can go in there deep, and that's it. You could never get them out. They're fully protected. So the conies are as safe as their hiding place. Now, doctrinally, Israel will find safety in the tribulation. And guess what place? Petra, Rock City. And they are weak people. There's not a lot of them there, but they're going to be as safe as the location that they're at to keep them from being swallowed by their enemies. Nothing's going to get near that Rock City, I'm telling you. Of course, you got Moses and Elijah that's going to be able to defend them. Moses can plague you. Elijah can call down fire from heaven. I wish I could call down fire from heaven. I never got that gift. Probably because I'd use it all too often. Yeah. Thing is, you might get into an argument with your wife, and just before you realized it, it's. Oh. Get mad at the church, and next thing you know, you all burned up. And then what would I do then? I have nowhere to go, nothing to do. Work, you'd just be terror. Anyway, it's a great responsibility to be able to call down fire from heaven, okay? Trust me. Anyway, now spiritually speaking, Jesus Christ is our rock, is he not? And man, we're as safe as the location where we're at. Doesn't get any better than that. In Luke chapter 6, verse 48, go ahead and turn there. Try to give you opportunity to go to these verses. That way we're not skipping over them. We're going to take 2 weeks on this. Luke 6:48, he says, he is like a man which built a house and digged deep and laid the foundation on a rock. And when the flood arose and the stream beat vehemently upon that house and could not shake it, for it was founded upon a rock. Kind of like being saved, you're founded on a rock. And in fact, I think the sign for, for the deaf is the church is on a rock. And when you're founded upon that rock, you have a foundation under you, man. And I mean, don't you love all these storms coming in, wiping out all these houses on the beach that you get to rebuild because it's government insurance? You know that every time they get wiped out, we had to rebuild them with taxpayer money. They were guaranteed insurance through the government because no insurance company would ever do that. They're not that stupid. Only our government is, because you get to pay for it. You get to replace their home every time it gets washed away. You say, well, they're building it on the sand. All because they want a view of the sunset, and the waves roaring in, I don't care if they want to do that, but I shouldn't have to rebuild it for them. I'd tell you what, do away with that insurance, and the first time it got washed away, they'd be moving in, further in. Look at 1 Corinthians 10:4. 1 Corinthians 10:4. It says, and did all drink of that same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. Telling you that the rock is not Simon Peter. The rock was Christ, and that's what they were drinking out. He told them to smite that rock, and water came out. Okay? And then he told them to speak to that rock. And what Moses did was he destroyed a type, and God said, you're not going into the promised land after you did that. Because why? Because the first time they met Christ, they smote him. The second time they meet him, they're to speak to him. Get it? And Moses smote it twice, and the Lord said, I was trying to establish an illustration. You stay right there. Really? That's why types are important, and they're important to God. Because it was laying out the future. 2 comings. The first one, they hung him on a cross. They smote him. The second one, they will speak to him. Moses destroyed that type. Where was I at here? I think I read that verse, didn't I? Look at, let me read you a couple verses here. You can write these down. 1 Peter 2:8 talks about a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, even to them which stumbled at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed. And that is, to us, the rock is not an offense, but to the world he is. They do not like him at all. They can even act like they like him, but they don't. Colossians 3:3 says, for ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. And he's our rock. We're hid with Christ. Your entire lifetime is hid in him. Because when God the Father, when they bring you to judgment, they can't find a thing wrong with you. Your life is hidden. You're safe. You're secure. Because why? You're in the rock. And the devil can't get to you. I mean, he can get to something, but he can't get to your soul. Isaiah 32:2 says, a man shall be as an hiding place from the wind and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. A hiding place. And then I'll give you one more here. No, a couple more. Psalm 61, verse 1-4. Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. From the end of the earth will I cry to thee when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I, for thou hast been a shelter for me and a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in the covert of thy wings, Selah. That's Psalm 61, 1-4. Say there's safety in Jesus Christ. There's safety from the wrath of God. There's safety from listen, whatever is happening to you, and my next message kind of goes into all this, whatever's happening to you, God, if you belong to God, He's allowing it too. I don't know about you, but I'm scared of that, but I'm also comforted by that. Now, whatever's happening to me, God is allowing it. And, you know, and maybe I caused some of it myself. Now, if you've caused it, you caused your own problems, well, then there you are. Just own up to it and ask God for mercy. But if something comes on you and you didn't make it happen, you didn't cause it to happen, you're minding your own P's and Q's, and all of a sudden something falls on you, I lay it right at the throne of God and say, okay, what do you want out of this? You know? You wait till we get to my message, man. I mean, you talk about God can allow some things, man. I mean, it'll shake up your world. That's why you need a little preparation and you need a little security, and you better be saved. Proverbs 21:31, this is a famous verse which says, the horse is prepared against the day of battle, but safety is of the Lord. Now, there's no doubt about that. But don't forget to prepare that horse. That horse is prepared, but safety is of the Lord. In other words, you can prepare all you want, and you still need God. You can have all the food in the world, but, you know, if a group of hoarders comes in, you know, and marauders, they can steal everything you got and leave you with nothing. You need God's protection. You need God's wisdom. I mean, you still need the Lord, but He didn't say don't prepare that horse for battle. You still prepare the horse. You still prepare to some degree. Now, we're not going through the tribulation. I'm not telling you we're not. But you know, the word tribulation means trouble. And the Bible says we have tribulation. Everybody here has got some kind of trouble. I guarantee it. You got some kind of trouble. Whether it's trouble with finances or trouble with the family or trouble with work or trouble with your own flesh, which we all have that trouble. You've got trouble. Safety is of the Lord. You prepare what you can. Proverbs 16:7, it says, when a man's ways please the Lord, He maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Now that's what I like. The fact that if I'm pleasing to God, He can even take my enemies and make them be at peace with me. And I added this down below. No people ever gain peace and safety by weakness. Did you know that? Sometimes we Christians think we have to show ourselves weak. We have to show ourselves almost passive. It's anything but that. Now, we don't show ourselves arrogant either. But we don't necessarily portray ourselves as weak. Let me show you a verse here. Turn to Luke chapter 22, and we'll end with this for today. Luke chapter 22, look at verse 35 and 36. And he is, of course, he just got done talking about Peter denying Him 3 times, but he says there, and He said unto them, now this is one of the last messages He's got before the cross. And He said unto them, when I sent you without purse, because He told them not to take a purse with them, and scrip, that's a shepherd's bag. That's what a scrip is. And shoes, lacked ye anything? And they said, nothing. And while He was there, when He sent them out, they didn't lack anything. He provided for them. Then said He unto them, but now, something's changed. You say, what's changed? He's leaving. He's leaving them. You know what He says? He that hath a purse, let him take it. You might want to keep your money a little bit closer than the bank. Might want to consider what kind of money you got in your hand. What you got. I mean, you know, I remember the old days, man. You go to somebody's house, you know, and this old woman come to the door and you were selling something and she'd bring out this change purse. And she'd reach in there, you know, and it's like slower than molasses, man. But she'd reach in there and she'd bring out a coin and count them out to you, you know. And maybe, you know, if it was $1 a box or 50 cents a box, you know, she'd buy 2, she'd just bring out 4 quarters, or she might bring it out in dimes. But is that change purse? That's the purse. That's what you carry. Listen, when money was money, that's what you had. You had a purse. Why? You had a change purse. And you carry it right there in your front pocket. But he says that, but now he that hath a purse, let him take it. In other words, have it with you. And likewise his scrip. You know, we call that a bug out bag today. It's an overnight bag. It's something where you can just grab it and run out the door. And you've got enough in there to survive a couple days. You know, there's all different kind of ways you could prepare those. I mean, we had them to where they were like 50 pounds. I told my wife, that's too heavy for us now. You know, we're going lightweight, you know. But listen, you can make a shelter out of a tarp, you know, a 7-foot tarp. I mean, keep the rain off of you. You can have enough in that bag just to get by for a day or two, like an overnight bag. So that's your scrip. And by the way, those who kept sheep, shepherds, that's exactly what they had. They didn't go out there, you know, and I mean, first of all, I've seen some of the stuff that they wore. It was like putting on a sheepskin or something. This thing it's amazing. They could be standing out there and it could be 5 degrees, man. They're just as warm as toast. But when they're out there, they have to have certain provisions. They can't just leave the sheep and say, well, I'm going to leave the sheep. I got this thing about this Turk. He left his sheep and he went to get coffee. And he went to a little coffee shop, you know, and the Turkish coffee, really strong. He probably needed something a lot stronger after he watched what happened. His sheep started moving toward a cliff. And he's watching it from this distance, and he should be up there. And he didn't get up there, and they start falling, or they just follow one another right over the cliff. It killed about 30 of them. There are so many at the bottom, it provided cushion, so it didn't kill a lot of them. They just kind of bounced and went on their way. I mean, I've got the account where, I mean, he left the sheep, okay? Yeah, they're not very smart. They'll fight, if you don't teach them where to graze and where to feed, they'll follow anybody. That's the problem with Christians. They hear somebody that might make sense to them, but not the scriptures, and that's a problem. It says, and he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. Now, isn't that interesting? God wants you armed. And by the way, that sword in that day was called a Roman short sword. It was concealable. And the reason you know that is because in the garden, they're concealed. I mean, he whips that thing out, and one of them cuts off Malchus's ear. He's swinging that thing, and Malchus ducked, and it just trimmed his ear right off. Of course, the Lord healed it, so nobody knew any better, you know. He said, they cut off my ear. Nah, it's right there. I can see it. Their little blood nicked you. No, it cut it off. But he said they had 2 swords among them, and Peter had at least one of them. And it was a short sword. Well, that was the weapon of the day. That was a concealed carry of the day. And you ought to have at least that to protect yourself, your family, your children. It tells you to sell your garment and buy one. See, the Second Amendment doesn't give me the right to bear arms. The Word of God gives me the right to bear arms. Just keep that in mind. You can go online, you can find these YouTubes that have been put together, and they're actually films of every country that ever suffered a genocide, and they disarmed them first. Your own government disarmed, and then they'll kill you. That's why our founding fathers put in the Second Amendment, why the Second Amendment backs up all the others. If your government is afraid of you, they won't try things on you. But if they can get those guns out of your hands, there's nothing that keep them from doing anything they want to you. So just a thought. Notice in that thing there's preparation. You have the script, you have the purse, and you have a weapon to defend yourself. Why? Because the Lord knows how dangerous this world's going to be, and guess what? He was leaving. Now, while he was there, could he protect those disciples? Well, when they came there in the garden to get him, he made them all fall backwards. He had the power, didn't they? That's not going to happen today, but I can tell you what will put them backwards. About 2 or 3 in the chest. They'll fall backwards. You don't want to have to do that? I mean, you don't, but I'm talking about protecting your life. I'm talking about your life or theirs. Your children or them taking your children or killing your children, abducting your children. I mean, you got to defend yourself. That's a law of the land until they change it. But the Bible, that's a concept in the Bible people don't want to acknowledge, and Christians don't want to. They act like they're pacifists. I'm like, we're harmless. In other words, you never have to worry about me. I'll never attack you for no reason whatsoever. I don't want your stuff. I'm not going to steal your stuff. I'm not going to conspire against you. Why? I'm to be harmless. Attack my family. I mean, you physically had an attack on them, that changes everything. That's the way it's got to be. Okay, we'll stop there. So we've only covered 2 of the ants and the conies. We got the locust and the spider, and they're just as interesting. So, anybody got a question or comment? Okay, take a break. It's 11. Still can't get done early.